what's up, people? How are you doing? Roland Martin here. It is March 9th, 2018. This is the Roland Martin Unfiltered podcast. I know. Y'all have not seen me for some time when it comes to doing the live stream. That's because I have been on the road. You have no idea whatsoever. Me being on the road and how crazy it has been. The travel schedule, of course, the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King is April 4th in Memphis. And I have been traveling all around the country doing interviews with a lot of his lieutenants, people like Dorothy Cotton and Bill Lucy and Reverend Jackson and Clarence Jones, who was his attorney, Claiborne Carson, of course, who wasn't a King lieutenant, but he's over the MLK Institute at Stanford, talking to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. I got Congressman John Lewis next week. I got Andrew Young the week after that, catching up with Bob Brown, of course, who accompanied Coretta Scott King to the airport to get the body of Dr. King. I'll talk to Zernona Clayton, Reverend C.T. Vivian, my goodness, Reverend Jim Lawson, the one who called Dr. King to come to Memphis. Also, let's see, who else? Oh, my goodness, Zernona Clayton, talked to her. Also, I talked to Juanita Abernathy. Of course, she is the widow, Ralph Abernathy. And so it has been just crazy. I've been traveling all around the place. And so that's what I've been doing. So just want to let y'all know. So we've been loading videos. You've been seeing me do live streams and stuff along those lines. That's what we've been doing. So just want to let you know that. Second, before I get into what I want to talk about, let me give a shout out to my sister Zena. Today is her 40th birthday. You can, if you send her a tweet at House of Zena on Instagram and also on Twitter, you can check her out. So do that. So send her a shout out. All right, so let's get to the issue at hand. A couple of weeks ago at the CPAC convention, a conservative there, let's just say, slammed Michael Steele, the first black chairman of the Republican National Committee, saying that the only reason he was elected chairman was because he was black. And Republicans have been, dissing Michael. I mean, they disrespected him from day one. And so they got into it. And so then, of course, Matthew Schlapp, he is the leader of CPAC. He said this guy called Michael Steele and offered his apology, and Michael wouldn't accept it. And Schlapp said, well, Michael wasn't being gracious. It's like, really? So black man, he got to be gracious? So I got to be gracious to accept your apology after you've insulted me? Oh, is that how this thing goes? Oh, okay. All right, that was cute. That was interesting. So on Wednesday, I had Michael Steele on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Some of you may have heard it. You might have missed it. Here is that conversation with Michael Steele.
As long as that guy has a TV show, my goal is to just take him off the air.
Shut the hell up.
Okay, what's up? Shut up.
Sybil, Roland Martin is back home in Washington, D.C. for a change.
Second.
Shocking. This is what my house looks like. Completely forgot what it looked like. So
Yeah.
I know that
being
feeling.
on the road, of course, getting ready for MLK 50th, the anniversary of assassination in Memphis. And so here for a second. Glad to be here. But Saturday, Charleston, South Carolina, I'll see you guys for the 2018 Charleston Black Expo Empowerment Summit, where I'll give the keynote. Where do we go from here? So looking forward to being in Charleston with some shrimp and grits. So have it ready for a brother, guy. Have it ready for a brother.
Yeah, man.
All right, y'all. Let's talk about this here. So over the last couple of weeks, things have been a little crazy in Washington, D.C. And no, we're not talking about Sam Nunberg giving drunk interviews or the craziness of Donald Trump being sued by a porn star. At the Conservative Political Action Committee conference, this dude took a shot at Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, by saying, hey, he only got picked because he's black. Michael was actually in the room where the guy made the comment.
I'm here. I'm standing right here.
And then when he objected, the guy who runs CPAC, Matt Schlapp, pretty much said that, well, you should have showed grace in accepting his apology. Joining us right now is Michael Steele, former chair of the Republican National Committee. You ungraceful SOB.
But
Mike, first of all, I got to ask, so you're sitting in the room And this guy who I don't know who he is, Eon something, makes this comment, and what goes through your mind as you're sitting there?
I was actually just outside the room doing my radio show. We were winding up my radio show, and he makes the comment, and this brother comes out of the room with his phone going, "You see this?" Because a reporter just tweeted it out when it happened. And I was like, oh, hell no, what's going on in there? And, I'm trying to finish a radio show, and I wanted to go inside and say something. So what I did was finished up, and then I went inside the room and just kind of stood there so that people could see that I was standing there. And it got a little bit uncomfortable. That's fine. But he was off the stage at that point. So I texted Matt Schlapp. I said, Matt, what's up? I've spoken at this conference. I've been a supporter of this conference. Why the broadside on me 8 years after my chairmanship? So Matt, said he'd come on my radio show the next day, and then all hell breaks loose. And that's, what I find out is, I tell you, what was interesting to me about this, the conversation that Matt and I had on my radio show the next day is the kind of conversation that typically in the party happens in closed rooms. When you confront someone on issues like this, that's the kind of conversation you have to deal with. What I appreciated about it was he just exposed it out there on national radio, and everyone got to hear it and see it live as it would have unfolded in a back room inside somebody's office. So there are a lot of issues that this party still has to confront, and number one is race. They have an issue with it. They don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to address it, and the expectation for Black Republicans, as I said to Matt, so how did Ian get his job? Because he's a person of color. How did he get his job? Was it because of his great talent at communicating, or was it because he's Hispanic? And so when you push back on them, then you begin to see the cracks in their logic. You begin to see the cracks in their reasoning, and it's exposed. And I think that's good.
Well, one thing that was very interesting so when Schlapp was interviewed, he says that you should have been graceful. He gave an interview with Hallie Jackson of MSNBC. You should have been graceful. But in the same interview, he pretty much says, I agree with what Ian said. And it's like, wow, okay. That's what we're doing now.
Right. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing now. But the other thing is, and I think we've got to just put it where it is. A lot of this is happening and coming out because an environment has been created in which it's okay to do this because there are no repercussions. Ian still has his job. He wasn't even reprimanded. I was told you should be graceful. You basically stay in your place, know your lane. This is how it is. You get the joke and all that. And the fact of the matter is the environment has been created inside the party, and then I think across the country as a result of what we saw unfold during the campaign, and as a result of things like Charlottesville, where people feel now I can tell you what I really think. I think that's good in the sense that we can confront it head on. No more of this, backroom quiet stuff where people sort of fester in these attitudes and they manifest themselves in other ways. Now they just feel they can come out and say it, and I think it's better to be able to confront it directly.
They don't even invite you to stuff.
They disrespect you so much. How long are you going to take this? Why don't you just come on home?
Actually, I am home. Remember, the Republican Party is the home for Black folks. We started in this party politically. We, in fact, helped form the party.
Okay, that was then. But the way they treat you with such disrespect, man.
I mean, Mike, they just had a Republican Trailblazers luncheon. Is it correct that you weren't even invited to that?
Who was a trailblazer?
And then, of course, we remember in 2012 in Tampa at the convention, they wouldn't even give you credentials. And it's sort of like they're trying to say, oh, yeah, that he didn't even exist as a chairman.
Yeah, and look, a lot of that is sort of the politics of it. A lot of it is some of the personal stuff that occurred during my chairmanship. Particularly with some of the members. Look, I went into this job at the time, and I completely disrupted their processes. And the thing that, Roland, you know this, working in Washington, is that when you start messing with people's money, it gets personal real quick. And I was a guy who came in and killed a lot of contracts, a lot of no-bid contracts, and put in place systems in which a lot of states around the country, particularly states where we live and where we are politically active as African Americans, because I thought it was important to sort of create a bridge to build that.
But you also made the party a lot of money.
You're right.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know.
Change is good.
Oh,
Well, I tell you what, it's sort of crazy. And I keep saying to Republicans, if y'all gonna diss the one brother you had as chairman, you ain't gonna get other black people to show up.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
And so
right.
that's the question now, and then I guess we have to wait till next time. But where does the discussion go now that, I mean, the sheets keep being pulled off, and showing this. And so where do you guys go from here?
Well, right now, nowhere, because as long as Trump has the attitude he has on a lot of these subjects, it's not going anywhere. And more people are going to adopt that because they don't want to tick him off. Real quick,
Michael, should he go to Memphis for King's assassination anniversary?
I think he should, absolutely.
Will
absolutely.
he?
No, he ain't.
Probably not.
All right.
Okay.
Michael Ungrateful Steele. Thank you very much.
Show some grace, Roland. Come on.
Come home,
Black
Michael
people always
Steele.
gotta
Come
show
home.
grace.
Come home, brother. Come
Sing
home.
Amazing Grace.
All right, folks. So here's the deal. Okay, first of all, my audio might sound a little different because I forgot I didn't have my lavalier microphone on. So my bad. I'm sorry about that. So that was Michael Steele on Tom Joyner Morning Show on Wednesday. Now, I did an interview on, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, I did an interview Tuesday with Kay James. Kay James, longtime black Republican. She is the first African American, the first woman president of the Conservative Heritage Foundation. Huge job. And again, this is a woman nearing her 70s who has been a black Republican for most of her life, used to be a Democrat. And so she is very influential in the party. She and I had opportunity. First of all, we had a long conversation. We're putting that interview together, but a part of that conversation was me asking her about this whole issue, this whole deal with Michael Steele. So this is what Kay James, the president of the Heritage Foundation, the Conservative Heritage Foundation, considered to be the preeminent conservative foundation in America. This is what she had to say about the attacks on Michael Steele. So how does it feel when you have folks who attack the first black chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele? I've had him on my show many times, and I mean, for him not to get invited to a luncheon, 2012, not to even get credentials to the convention, when they had a luncheon honoring former chairs, he wasn't invited. I mean,
it's ridiculous, and there are those of us who spoke loudly and called them out, and I said, if you I've said it once, I'll say it again. You come for Michael, you come for me. I mean, we have to support each other, and we have to have each other's backs. And Michael is one of the most incredibly talented. I mean, for crying out loud, he got elected in statewide office in Maryland. It was just so offensive to say that they elected him because of his race in that particular moment in time. And so, yes, it's a tough battle. Being a black Republican is not the easiest thing in the world.
And see, black folks who are not Republicans watch this and say, man, if y'all gonna diss him, I know you don't want to talk to me.
Well, now let's keep it real, because there's some stuff on the other side of the aisle as well. And I have seen how black folks have been treated in the Democrat Party. So I say a pox on all their houses. I'm just happy to be, a conservative. The Democrat Party.
All right, then. And so that's Kay James there talking about this very issue. And so, again, her making it clear you come after Michael Steele. You also come after me. But here's the thing that I want to get into. Hold on one second. Here's the thing that I also want to get into that a lot of people have not paid much attention to. Now, unfortunately, News One Now is no longer on the air on TV One. Of course, we were canceled on last show was on December 21st, and there are a lot of stories, frankly, that are not getting the attention they deserve because mainstream media, frankly, doesn't cover these things. Okay, so one of them is what's happening in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So here you have an African American, Dr. Ben Carson, a man who grew up in public housing in Detroit, who, first of all, earlier this year ruled that, first of all, he changed the Obama era rule, which called for cities to turn in their plans to end segregated housing in their cities. That's first. Now, the report comes out this week that Dr. Ben Carson is going to remove the anti-discrimination language that is in the mission statement of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Yeah. That's what he actually is going to do. Now, guys, this is how crazy this thing is. This is what the mission statement currently says. HUD's mission is to ensure Americans have access to fair, affordable housing and opportunities to achieve self-sufficiency, thereby strengthening our communities and nation. Now that's what they're going to change it to. So he's putting self-sufficiency. Y'all hear me? Self-sufficiency. Now, they're considering removing the words free from discrimination. But he wants to put self-sufficiency. Really? Now, if anybody understands, you do know that HUD was really born out of the civil rights movement. Yeah. His was also a joke. This year is the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act. And let me explain to y'all. The Fair Housing Act, they fought that for several years. The Senate finally, in early 1968, led by Black Republican Edward Brooke of Massachusetts, the first African American elected to the United States Senate since Reconstruction. He helped lead the effort to end the filibuster. Southern Democrats, as well as conservative Republicans, a lot of moderate white Republicans and Democrats did not want the Fair Housing Act. So they were able to get it to stop the filibuster in the Senate. King gets assassinated April 4th, 1968. President Lyndon Baines Johnson sends a letter the next day to the House, says, there's no greater way to honor the life and legacy of Dr. King than to pass the bill that he was fighting for. And that was the 1968 Civil Rights Act, which is known as the Fair Housing Act. So here you have an African American, a Black Republican, under Donald Trump, who wants to remove free of discrimination from the HUD mission statement. This is utterly illogical, but it also speaks to, again, where the Republican Party is today. Now, I caught up with Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. We had a conversation about this very issue. We talked about what this means. We talked about, in terms of her thoughts and the impact on this. And this is a woman who used to chair the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which dealt with the issue of discrimination in jobs. This is what she had to say about that Ben Carson, Donald Trump decision. I jump around. I got to ask, because we just mentioned housing, and so it jumped to me. I said, I got to ask you this here. What do you make of Secretary Ben Carson removing the anti-discrimination language from the mission statement of HUD? And earlier in the year, told cities that they canceled the Obama era rule where they had to submit their plans to end segregated housing. And I'm going, this is the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, and a Black Secretary of HUD is removing the anti-discrimination language from the mission of that department.
What greater insult to a generation that gave their lives
and I mean that quite literally, to get us to where we are today, then to see a throwback with somebody literally trying to erase the results of what they did with a stroke of his pen. This is one reason why this administration cannot last for long. Look, we've had Republican administrations. Not all of them has been as strongly civil rights as Obama, but I have never seen any president, any administration, until Trump and his black cohorts try to turn the clock back in writing so that nobody could make any mistake about it, not just in rhetoric, but here in regulations, here in what you have the power to do, and for what? What do you accomplish? Who are you pleasing? I don't even think Trump has asked for that. Very, very disappointing. So disappointing that I'm sure it won't last. I would reckon that if the next president is a Republican, he will be in reaction to this administration, and those regulations will go back to where they have been since the civil rights movement under presidents Republican and Democratic. That's just how much of a throwback that is. That's a throwback into the 20th century. We're deep into the 21st century now.
So let me just try to unpack this thing. Republicans love to talk about, and you heard Michael Steele say it, that African Americans have found the Republican Party. True. Republicans love to talk about in terms of where they stood when it came to slavery, where they stood when it came to the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, known as the Reconstruction Amendments. They love to talk about in terms of where many of them stood when it came to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act. I already talked about the Fair Housing Act. And you hear these things. But the reality is this here. The Republican Party has a problem today dealing with black people because the Republican Party continues to go after white voters. Now, I need you to understand history, and this is where I really think people need to begin to understand. White America was iffy when it came to rights of African Americans. I love it when I hear Republicans talk about, the Democrats created the KKK. It was born out of the South. And yeah, but there also was a movement called the Lily White Movement in the Republican Party. Herbert Hoover, who enjoyed the support of African Americans like Ida B. Wells Barnett, he was a leader of that movement. It was called the Lily White Movement. You don't have to take my word for it. Feel free to go look it up. I want you right now to go Google Lily White Movement and Republican Party. I want you to Google Herbert Hoover and Lily White Movement. And so, of course, it was no doubt Southern Dixiecrats, Democrats, who were leading the effort against integration, against desegregation. But let me be real clear. White Republicans and white Democrats and white independents all benefited from Jim Crow. So let's not act like only one political party did. So you go through 1960. So 1964, Barry Goldwater, senator from Arizona, he opposes the 1964 Civil Rights Act. He claims that it wasn't about race. It simply was about him being a libertarian and the government telling people what they can and cannot do. Well, for us, it was like, the hell with your rights. But the problem is then again, of course, Republicans then had a Southern strategy. A Southern strategy. That's what they had. And that Southern strategy was about pitting poor, largely Southern whites against African Americans. Do you understand what I'm saying here? The Republicans used that strategy. Actually, they use it to this day. Now, to understand, now Republicans will say, well, you know, that was 1968. But the reality is, after the Civil Rights Movement, even really actually while it was going on, white Americans did not really fully embrace efforts for freedom for African Americans. You don't believe me? Go read Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, Dr. King's book, 1967, where he said, our problem will not be those who are burning crosses and got hoods. It will be the white moderate. That's what he said. And we've seen that. This whole view, black people, y'all getting too much. What are you doing? But you take this thing through one of the greatest Republican strategists, Lee Atwater. This is what Lee Atwater said. This was Lee Atwater explaining how Republicans could win the votes of racists and not sound racist. This is a quote. This was from a recording that was released long after he died. Quote, you start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. It hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract. Now you're talking about cutting taxes. And all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this. It's much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger. It was a 42-minute interview with Lee Atwater. This is the man that he understood dog whistles. He understood welfare queen. He understood, this is a guy who helped Ronald Reagan get elected, campaign manager for President George H.W. Bush, understood those buttons. And let me further unpack this. There were a group of black Republicans in Illinois in the 1990s who met with the party, who was saying, like, look, there's a way for us to compete for black votes. So these black Republicans, and I have happened to actually talk to a couple of them who were part of the presentation. So they went through this whole presentation, and they had charts and everything like that. And when it came time for Q&A, one Republican goes, well, look, we're simply not going to start supporting welfare. The black Republicans looked at each other, and they said, who the hell said welfare? Who even brought up welfare? What are you talking about? He instinctively went right to welfare when talking about black voters, even though most people who want welfare are white. See, the reality is the Republican Party does not want to make a serious effort at courting black votes. I said this on Washington Watch, my Sunday morning show on TV One, that the Republican Party is scared of black people. They are fearful of talking to black people. They are afraid of getting questioned by black people because of their poor record when it comes to the issues black people care about. Now I'll give you another example. Mitch McConnell, who was the Senate Majority Leader. Mitch McConnell had a book that came out. Let me find out what the name of the book is. And I'm deliberately unpacking this the way I am and taking my time in doing so, because I really need you to understand what's going on and then what's happening right now with Donald Trump. So Mitch McConnell had a book, and it was called The Long Game, a Memoir. Okay? So they reached out to us. They were doing a radio tour. They reached out to us at the Tom Jordan Morning Show. And we said, sure, we have him on. So Then they call back and they're like, well, I don't know, because, Roland can be really, really tough. And we were sort of like, well, first of all, Roland will be fair. Roland will be honest. Roland will not, he's gonna ask tough questions, but it's not like, he's going to trash you and demean you. Nah, I don't know. So they canceled. So the Senate Majority Leader, the guy who's now the Senate Majority Leader, was afraid to come on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Was afraid because we were going to ask him some tough questions. I want y'all to think about this here. You are a leader in the United States Senate. This is the largest morning show targeting African Americans. And you're scared to come on? Really? You're really scared to come on? If you're promoting your book, why wouldn't you come on the Tom Joyner Morning Show? Because they don't want to talk to black people. And here's the piece. When you're afraid of your record, when you are afraid of your record, then that's what happens. Do you hear me? See, let me give you another example. I hosted Washington Watch for 4 years. Sunday morning news show, the only Sunday morning news show that targets African Americans. Okay? This happened. We had an open invitation to every Republican in the House and the Senate. Any of you are more than welcome to come on the show. In the history of that show, Congressman Tom Price, later became Trump Secretary of Housing and Health and Human Services. He came on twice. Pete Olson, a congressman from Houston, came on once to talk about, it was oil and gas or something along those lines. Alan West, African American, came on. Okay, I'll check this out. West came on, and I told West, these Republicans, they won't come on. Now, mind you, the invitation was for any Republican, even that Republican who never gets on television. Alan West said, that's crazy. And Alan West then said, okay, told his press secretary, I was sitting right there. He said, I want you to send an email right now to every press secretary in the Republican House caucus and to encourage them to book their member on Roland Martin's show and say, I just finished doing his show. It was good. He is fair. He will give us an honest hearing. Not one. Now, when we got News One Now, there was a guy from Kansas who lost. I can't pronounce his name. Kansas House Republican loses. Let me find this. Give me 1 second. what is his name? Huelskamp, Tim Huelskamp, Huelskamp. So Tim came on the show, Congressman Tim. I think he came on twice. Congressman Bill Flores came on the show from Texas. Now, first of all, frankly, Bill don't count because he's not white, he's Latino, but also Bill's a Texas A&M Aggie, so am I. So that really was an Aggie connection. And then there was a guy. He was white from North Carolina. His wife went to Winston-Salem State, and he and Congressman Alma Adams are co-chairs of the HBCU caucus. Okay, so he came on the show. Okay, that's who all came on. So all came on the show. That's it. In 4 years. In 4 years, those are the only white Republicans who came on. Now, Congressman Will Hurd came on. He's black. Those are the only white Republicans who came on. I want you to think about this here. Here's a show hosted by an African American, targeting African Americans, issuing an open invitation for them to come on the show. I'm scared to do it. Senator Lindsey Graham came on. He was actually in the hallway at MSNBC. We went and grabbed him. He came and popped on. We got him on the air. Scared. Open invitation. They could have watched the previous interviews and seen, oh man, he's not going to sit here and trash people. Of course not. So what's the deal? The Republican Party will never, ever compete for black votes as long as the Republican Party fully embraces voter suppression. The Republican Party will never be able to get black votes unless they learn how to communicate with black people. There are examples. George Voinovich was a United States Senator from Ohio. Before that, he was governor of Ohio. Before that, he was mayor of Cleveland. And from all those positions, George Voinovich had no problem talking with black people. I believe when he ran for the United States Senate, he got 40% of the black vote. You know why? Because he had relationships. 40%. Republicans would kill to get 40% of the black vote. Am I arguing for black people to vote Republican? No. Am I arguing for them to vote Democrat? No. But here's the reality. When people say, oh, Democrats do nothing, Democrat. This is very simple. And I'm just going to use an example of just very basic dating. If you see someone in the hallway every day at school, and she never speaks to you, and she never looks your way, she never shows you any interest, and then if you do talk to her, she turns her back and ignores you, it's a good bet she's made it perfectly clear where she stands with you. That's Republicans to black people. So when people say, black people have got nothing from the Democratic Party, well, first of all, it's not true. But second, there is no party, opposite party, trying to recruit black people. Because they don't care. They're not going to spend money in black communities. Because they're going to say, oh, they're not going to vote for us. Yeah, but if you never talk to us, and then if you're black, and you watch how they treat Michael Steele, then we go, hello. When Donald Trump sits there, and at a Black History event, he invites 7 people around the table who are black, people who ordinarily wouldn't even get in the room, and he starts talking about Frederick Douglass as if Frederick Douglass is still alive. Hello? Really? When has Donald Trump sat down with black media? When has Donald Trump done any of that? I'll wait. Donald Trump has no intentions on talking to black people. Because he can't. Look at Jeff Sessions. Look at his record as Department of Justice. Look at this department. Look at this administration when it comes to civil rights. When it comes to issues that black people care about. When it comes to the right to vote. When it comes to supporting, fixing the Voting Rights Act, which the Supreme Court invalidated in Shelby v. Holder. What is the point that I'm making? The point that I'm making is this here. Y'all, I know many black Republicans. I mean, I'm talking about I know a lot of black Republicans. And black Republicans have talked about slamming their head up against the wall for years, and a party won't even listen to them. I'm going to give you one more story. So there was a white Republican who was running against Martin Frost. This was in Arlington. There were some church burnings in Texas. And so Michael Williams, who worked in the Reagan and Bush administration, African-American, former Texas education commissioner. I know Michael very well, a good friend of mine. His wife, Donna, graduate of Prairie View A&M University. So they were going to have a fundraiser at their home for this guy who was trying to beat Martin Frost, Democrat. So Michael sent them an email saying, hey, you know what, the candidate ought to release a statement, condemning these burning of black churches. No, we don't think so. Then they were like, Mike said, okay, guys, this is a no-brainer. It's a statement condemning the burning of black churches. We think it's going to look like it's pandering. Michael said, you're taking J.C. Watts around with you to black churches. Isn't that pandering? So Michael then told the story to his wife, Donna. And Donna said, ain't no man welcome in my house who doesn't have the guts to condemn the burning of black churches. And they canceled the fundraiser. This is what I'm talking about. Something as simple as this. This is why Republicans will not give black votes. The day Republicans get black votes is when the day they stop being scared of black people. When they stop using race to demonize black people. When they stop playing into the racial fears of white voters. So for all of you out there who say, oh, black folks should stop, the Democratic Party is doing nothing. Can the Democratic Party do more? Absolutely. Especially for the loyalty that black people have given. But let me be perfectly clear. Black people are some of the most astute voters in America. Black people are not dumb. Black people are not going to support people who don't support them. Black people understand dog whistles. Black people understand buzzwords. We understand catchphrases. When we hear states' rights, oh, trust me, that is not a simple, innocuous phrase. We know exactly what that means. When we hear local control, we know exactly what that means. And so I need people to understand what's going on here. I need people to understand that if the Republican Party is going to truly want to compete for black votes, you better start treating the black people in your party better. And you might want to start listening to those black people. As long as you don't, you got a problem. And Democrats, the problem for you is black people are not going to vote Republican. They simply may not vote for you. Ask Hillary Clinton how that went in certain states when you did not get the black turnout you needed. I hope people understand that it is historically correct that African Americans voted Republican from the point of after the Civil War really through 1960. Richard Nixon got a significant amount of black votes in 1960. But see, even Richard Nixon started this whole deal as well. Because Richard Nixon was scared to compete for black votes because he knew what was going on with white voters who disdained the civil rights movement. You don't believe me? Go read Jackie Robinson's book, I Never Had It Made. Jackie Robinson, black Republican, was angry with the Nixon campaign for the failure to even make a phone call to Dr. King. Kennedy made the call. Nixon never did. Kennedy's team used that and got massive black support when Kennedy was arrested in Albany, Georgia. Yeah, that happened. Jackie Robinson was hot, was angry at how he was treated. And he said, Richard Nixon promised me that he was going to fight for the black vote, and he didn't. You don't have to believe me. Go read his book. Jackie Robinson wrote it. So I hope this has been illuminating for some people who can understand what's going on, who can understand what's happening in this country. I hope you also understand that, and let me be real clear. I remember a lot of people got mad at me when I told Umar Johnson he could not use Coon on my show. I don't allow the calling of black Republicans sellouts and Uncle Toms and stuff along those lines. Because you know what? You start throwing out names, nobody hears you. I'm going to debate the issue. And there are some black Republicans I know who are very good people. And we may have some substantive policy differences, but they are good people. And so there are some black Democrats who are good people. There's some black Democrats who are awful. There's some white Democrats, my Republicans who are awful. Bottom line is you got awful people all around. The point I'm making is this here. Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't let somebody try to convince you, oh no, you guys don't know what's good for you because you just they want y'all to stay on the plantation. You ever notice those are the people who are infatuated with slavery language? And then they'll use somebody like Sheriff David Clark, who despises black people so much that he will condemn black people left and right. We have a history of that as well. Bottom line is this here. I have been saying this now for more than a decade. The Republican Party, they are scared of black people. There's a fear of engaging with African Americans. And I dare say, if you want to keep losing, or if you want to keep trying to ride that white wave, America's changing. 2043, only 47% of America will be white. And you might say, oh, Roland, that's, 27 years or whatever the number is. Okay. But guess what? It's happening. 25 years. It's happening. The next generation, a child born today, in 2018, when they turn 25, they're going to be voting in a country majority minority. Matter of fact, we won't even be using the word minority. It will be majority people of color. The day is coming. It is a day of reckoning for the Republican Party. Y'all might want to figure out the things that black people care about and the issues that we care about. Because you will have to deal with this one day. You will have to deal with it. And black Republicans have been trying to tell you. And then you're going to be confronted with it. And guess what? Then you would have had no equity built up with black folks whatsoever. Then it'll be all downhill. All right, folks, I hope this was a lesson for a lot of you. Do me a favor, please. I want you to always be learning and things along those lines. There are a couple of books. They're over there. Get Dorothy Cotton's book. Dorothy Cotton was the director of education for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Dr. King. I interviewed her. She was the only woman really in the inner circle of Dr. King's inner circle. So get her book. I'm reading her book right now. It is a great book. I certainly think you will enjoy it as well. Okay, folks, I got to go. Don't forget to Charleston. I will be at the Black Expo tomorrow. I'll see you guys there. My speech is at 11:30 tomorrow, so look forward to checking you all out. Also, I got a book signing there as well. Don't forget, folks, I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We want to hit 200,000 subscribers, so please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. Also, follow me on Snapchat. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter, all at Roland S. Martin. You can also follow me. Please follow me on Periscope as well. And, of course, follow me on Facebook, all of those platforms. And, again, go to RolandSMartin.com if you want to be on my email list. Trust me, I'm working on something. Show got canceled, but I'm working on something else, and you'll be the first to know when we send that email out. So you want to sign up at RolandSMartin.com. Also, check out my digital site, lifestyle site, allthat.tv. All right, folks, I got to go. Y'all have a great day. Peace out.